Hi, and welcome to WarHQ. My name is Lucius. Today's episode, what we're going to be doing is going through creating a fleet for Fjord Serpents Vikings at War. Now, Fjord Serpents Vikings at War was successfully funded on Kickstarter in January of this year. Currently, what we're doing is we are in pre-production. So we still have some sales open on Indiegogo. So the Kickstarter's been closed. The pre-orders are about to close there as well with backer kit. And we'll extend that Indiegogo campaign until I give the green light on the manufacturing. And we're hoping to have this game produced November, December of this year. That's the aim at the moment. We're still working on the rulebook, but what I wanted to do today, just for those backers and those interested people, is go through the very interesting fleet creation system that we have going in this game. Because what you'll find is you can take this any way you want, and it's super involved or it's super easy. And I think it's one of the really fun aspects of the game. You know what I mean? You can theory craft fleets, and you can really look at what works well together. So to represent that, what we have here is basically a dock or something here we have of ships, sort of like the pre-screen before a computer game or something where you're creating your fleet. And what we have here is the whole series of ships available in Fjord Serpents, from our trading vessel, the Nar, to our Carvey. There's two different variations there. To our Snekya, which is our medium-sized longship, to our mighty Drakkar, which is the biggest of the warships that we have available. Now over on this skerry or rock, we have our Lidang troops. So we've got spearmen, we've got archers, we've got javelineers. And over on this rock, what I have is we have herdmen. So these are our elite troops and exotic. So we have our herdmen, so axemen and swordsmen. We have berserkers, we have Ulfandar. So I've just got them sort of thrown out that way so that when we create this fleet together, as we go along, you can sort of see visually what we're aiming to do there. So the first real step in fleet creation, as you can see here on this handy little table, is to choosing a game level that you want to compete at. Now you can see here there's 3 game levels. We have Herseer, Jarl, and King. Now each of these corresponds with the amount of points that you'll have to spend on your army and upon your leader's unique abilities as well, which is really key to this game. So I think for the sake of this game, what I want to do is I'll start at just the medium sort of, or the standard level, I guess you'd call, of a game, which is the Jarl level. Now this will give us 65 points to spend on our fleet, but it'll also give us 2 faction abilities and 3 command points. So we go down here, and the game level that we're going to choose to play at is going to be the Jarl. Okay, another important decision we need to make straight up in step 2 is which faction we want to play as. Okay, so we have the Norse and the Danes, and I'll just briefly go over just the sort of design sort of theories that we have with this and what we've sort of applied to the game. Now, the Norwegians were very, very aggressive and not as, I guess you'd say, regimented as the Danes. The Danes had quite a modern kind of army and setup. They were a little bit more together, where the Norse were just pure aggression in a lot of aspects. And we're talking maybe more early to mid Viking era. After that, they kind of sort of just amalgamate together. So what we have with the Norse is we have 6 abilities that you're able to have, and with the Danes we have 6 abilities, and then these all sort of correspond to each other, I'd say, is how you'd put it. Now the main abilities for the Norse are aggressor. So once per turn, you may complete a grapple action without activating a crew if you initiate the collision that turn. That's really big because when you're colliding and grappling with ships, you've always got to spend a crew activation to be able to do it. So stuff like that is big. Now, Elite Carvey, this is really cool. One of your Carvey can be upgraded to have the Snekya's optimal sailing ability. So not only does it get the Carvey ability of Nimble, it gets the optimal sailing ability as well, which is good. Wild Followers. So again, a unique upgrade of Wild Followers. Now, Wild Followers enable you to have the first Berserker that you purchase. It's just over here. You can see on Wild Followers. So the first Berserker or Ulfandar only costs 2 points instead of 3, which is pretty big. It gives you an extra point to spend on your fleet. And you'll see that these have counters. So like these last 2, where the Norse get the Elite Carvey, the Danes get the Elite Snekya, which gets the Nimble ability, which is really good too. Where the Norse get Wild Followers, the Danes get loyal retainers, which is pretty much the same as the Berserker one. But what happens is your first herdman, axeman, or swordsman costs 1 point instead of 2. So they save a point there if that's the way that you want it to go. Now, another one here. The fourth Norse one is favored by the gods. So your first Volva hero, which is a Ceres, costs 1 point instead of 2. So you can see there's a few ways within your faction to be able to reduce the amount of cost of your fleet if that's the way you're going. Where on the other side, the Danes have the veteran pilot, so their first helmsman hero costs 1 point, not 2, which is big as well. Now the fifth ability, Sleek and Swift for the Norse. So one ship in your fleet gains +1 to any of its movement speed. So that means you can make it either faster under oar, under half sail, or under full sail. So you want some just super fast flagship or sort of a flanking ship. This is a good way to go. Where the Danes, on the other hand, get Juggernaut. So one ship in your fleet gains +1 to its hull value, which is very big. And this can't be combined with reinforced hull, which is another ability they have, which can increase hull. So on the Danes ability, you've got these bigger Juggernaut ships that you could build. Or on the Norse one, you've got these more sleek, slender things that can sort of move a lot quicker, which is important to know. And then the last ability for the Norse, which is a really big one as well, is Expert Boarders. So when you move a crew onto an enemy ship, roll a dice. On a major success, this movement does not count as that crew's activation for that turn. On a minor success, you can move a previously activated friendly crew with this boarding crew. Both count as activated. That's really big, and what that does with the Norse is it can tie in with that aggressor movement. So you get that free grapple, you haven't activated your crew. Once you start bashing the snot out of the enemy ships and you're able to board them, then you get this chance here of hopping your guys over to the enemy ships and not counting as activated on a major success. That's a 1 in 6 chance. Or on a minor success, being able to bring other crew members over with you that have activated, and both counting as activated. That's really powerful, and those two together are a real powerhouse combination like of aggression, and that's how we wanted the Norse to be. The Norwegians, because in most of the sea fights, the Norwegians got the better hand, and it was really because of their cohesion in the ocean and how they were able to operate, board, grapple, and attack people on the ships. And that's what we really want to represent with this. Where with the Danes, we want to have this more sort of veteran-y kind of standardized military sort of feel about them, which I think goes better with them, better constructed ships, etc. So their main two sort of ones that sort of counter this aggressor and expert border is superior construction. So all ships in the fleet receive 1 defense dice against all ship collisions, which is big. It means anything you hit from other ships or terrain, or obstacles as we call them in the game, you're going to get 1 dice at least to try and defend against, which you generally don't, which can save your life really. So that makes your ships really hard to sink, which is good, and goes with this Juggernaut and a few things. And the counter grapple rule is a really cool one, and it sort of goes against like some of the Norse stuff. So once per turn, select a friendly ship in your fleet that is grappled and roll a dice. On a major success, so 1 in 6 chance, you can switch 2 of the enemy's grapple tokens around so that they are blue on your ship and red on theirs. So you're basically turning the grapple tokens around of the enemy so that you own them now, which means they're easy to get rid of and you don't have to expend crew activations to get rid of them, which is a really good way if you want to try and escape, or you just want to get out of a bad position, which is awesome. So on a minor success, you can do this to 1 of their grapple tokens. So that's a 1 in 3 chance, but you've basically got a 1 in 2 chance or a 50% chance of something happening and being able to switch a counter. But if you get really lucky on that 1 in 6, you can switch 2 enemy grapple tokens, which is massive. So being unable to decide myself, I'm just going to roll a d6, and a 1, 2, 3, I'll choose Norse, and on a 4, 5, 6, I will choose Danes. So we roll a 3, and we're choosing Norse. So our faction is Norse, or Norwegians, as they were known. And looking at the skills that we've got here, I think just to keep it like what you do have the option here is on all of these tables you have a number correspondence. So you're able just to randomly roll these. And I think for the sake of this example, so I don't get too tech and go crazy on it, is I'm just going to roll for these abilities. So the first one is a d6, and you can see there I've rolled a 2. So I have an elite Kavi. So I've gained this ability. Because I'm going the Jarl level, I have 2 faction points. So I've just rolled Elite Kavi. So one of my Kavi is going to have the optimal sailing ability. And I roll a 5, which is Sleek and Swift. Okay, so we're seeing a bit of a theme for our fleet here. is that we have this really well-constructed carvey with optimal sailing, which can get movement bonuses. And then with the sleek and swift, I can either put it on that ship or another ship. So my fleet at the moment is looking like it's going to be really well-designed sailing vessels, which is one way to go. So we'll write those on the sheet and we'll get back to the next step. Okay, so having wrote down our 2 faction abilities and spent those points, we've got Elite Carving and Sleek and Swift. We now go on to step 3A of creating a fleet. And what we have now is we need to create our leader. And the first step in that is choosing a path. So this is something a little bit unique and a little bit role play too, like if you want to take it that way. So being able to select a path really gives you a guide as to where your leader sits and who they are as a person or what their sort of life aspirations are. But it also has a very practical role as well, because it'll dictate what sort of skills and abilities that leader will be able to bring to your fleet in later steps. So this is really important too. And some of them have negative gearing in them as well, so which is another interesting step on this. So we're just going to go through these briefly, and I'll just give my thoughts. So the first leader type, there's 10 different ones, by the way, and they're sort of based on archetypes of historical counterparts, which is very kind of interesting in its own way. Things that I've seen in leaders and leadership that I thought I could put into this game. So the first one is an upstart. So this leader is punching above his weight and does not necessarily have the birthright to rule. Instead, he has gotten to where he is through cunning, hard work, and the support of those around him. So special rules here, he must take the strategist as one of his selections. So that's a personal trait, which we'll get into later, which can give him some bonuses in combat. So he's a very capable sort of person who doesn't necessarily have many upgrades or effects. So things that like he could really gain from being wealthy or well connected, he doesn't really have. What he does have is a ton of abilities and traits that he can just pull out. So personal traits. So that's the upstart. Number 2 is the hereditary leader. This is like the opposite. So this leader comes from a long line of noblemen that have served their country for better or worse. His responsibility was thrust upon him, and how he deals with that is ultimately upon his shoulders. So this is interesting. This is the opposite of the guy before. So his rules, he must take either the Hearthguard or the Picked Herd upgrade. So what that means is he's able to have an elite standing of followers around him. So depending on his faction, in this case, is going to be Norse. So he's going to have more herdmen, swordsmen available to him. So that's very interesting. That has to be one of his selections. Now, he's got unlimited upgrades, which is pretty cool, but not very many traits available and just average kind of abilities and effects. So he's still developing personally as a leader, but has lots of wealth and upgrades that he can take. And that also has that elite guard around him that protect him. The third type is a nationalistic leader. So this leader is a proud servant of his nation and or king. Every decision and action he takes is for the advancement of his fellow countrymen, and his loyalty is absolute. So this is quite cool. He has unlimited supply of anything. He can go any way he wants with his traits, abilities, effects, upgrades. But he does gain the negative trait reckless. So if we read reckless, so having all of that unlocked gives him a negative trait basically. So with reckless here, the leader's ship will always opt to collide and grapple with the closest enemy ship and will not break grapples in combat unless you roll a major or minor success. The leader's a bit of a hothead and he needs to fight. He loves to fight, and the only way to get him out is to really have some dice luck. So that's your negative trait, to be able to take an unlimited sort of selection. The next sort of leader type is the renegade. So this leader is an outlaw to his nation and is either hiding or has sought refuge within some foreign powerful enemy or relative. His power is limited at home, but having powerful allies can tip this to his advantage. So one good thing about this guy, he's got plenty of traits and upgrades and, average kind of everything in selection, but he does have a couple of rules here. He has foreign influence. So one of his command points, so the command points you can see up here, we're going to have 3 under the Jarl level. So one of his command points can be spent on the opposite table. So that means that we've got the Norse guy, so we can spend on the Danes table if we want, as far as some of his leadership characteristics go, which is very cool. But he must also take the trait sneaky as one of his selections. So sneaky is an other trait here. So it's quite cool. The leader can move to any friendly touching ship this turn. Also, if that leader dies in combat or if the ship is cleared, they escape to a friendly touching ship on a roll and get a major or minor success, which is super good because, like, if the enemy's ability is about capturing your leader, then you're able to slip out of the way all the time, which goes with this renegade sort of lifestyle of this guy would be always running away and, trying to avoid those people hunting him. Okay, the next one we're going to look at here is the usurper. So the usurper, this leader is out for himself at all times and is both untrustworthy and narcissistic. He has gained power at the expense of those around him or for those that perish before him in mysterious circumstances. So you'll see here he's pretty much average across the board here. Now he gets two particular rules which are really big. So the first rule is he gains either the weak or unstable negative trait. Now, these can affect his decisions and what he sort of can spend stuff on. So with negative traits here, you can see weak, cannot select combat traits or effects to spend command points on. So that's two whole tables he can't spend things on. So he can't spend it on effects and he can't spend it on combat traits. So if you were to take that, you've sort of limited your leadership style a little bit, but you're going to get other bonuses as well. And unstable, when wanting to perform an effect, roll a major or minor success to be unable to, which is big as well. So if you've got effects, so if you're taking effects, then you've got to roll to actually make those happen. It just indicates a guy that's completely mentally unhinged and is all out for blood and power. But the big thing that this guy has is he gains +1 command point that can be spent anywhere. So that makes this 3 figure up here, turns it into 4, which is massive. It's actually really big. Having another command trait can really tip how you want to design your fleets. So what you're seeing here is a trend. A negative will always give a bigger bonus in something else. So the next one is the tyrant. We're getting into the really fun leaderships here. So this leader rules with an iron fist and seeks to dominate those around him through threat of punishment and violence. Those that do not recognize his rule soon make a powerful enemy or wake up screaming with their hall on fire. I suppose we know a few of those. Now, totally unlimited skill chain here, can have anything. But there's one major negative ability here, and it's called rest in pieces. So if this leader dies in battle, all surviving friendly ships must test to stay in the battle. They need to roll a major or minor success, otherwise they must flee from the table in any way they can if not engaged. So basically, this guy, of course he rules through this iron fist and people are afraid of him and what he can do. If he dies personally in battle or gets destroyed or captured, the whole fleet can sort of crumble. So that's what you've got to, that's your payoff with this guy. Like, you've got really good access to unlimited sort of skill chains, but you really got to watch yourself and watch the flagship that you don't get taken out in battle, because it could all go bad after that. Okay, the next type of leader is the merchant. Now the merchant, this leader is a farmer and a merchant trader at heart, only engaging in warfare when it is absolutely necessary. He values commerce and the acquisition of wealth above all else and is very well connected as a result. Now, this guy has very little traits and has zero amount of effects. He can't have effects at all. He can only have one trait. So he doesn't have a lot of traits or personal things that he can bring to the table. What he does have is a lot of upgrades, as you'd imagine with someone who's wealthy, who's a trader. So he's all about the upgrades, baby. So rules. Gains an additional command point to be spent on upgrades only. So it goes from 3 to 4, and most of his command points are going to be spent on upgrades when you look at that, which is very powerful. And he gains the tactless negative trait. So the tactless negative trait, if we go over here, cannot select effects to spend command points on. Makes sense, right? So it just basically takes him out of that whole skill tree, which are really powerful boons that you can give to your fleet, basically. Okay, so moving right along, we have the adventurer is the next type of path that we could take. So the adventurer, this leader is full of wanderlust and awe of the world around him. He explores places that others dare not, has a wealth of learned experience, but tends to neglect his responsibilities at home, which is important. So he doesn't have many upgrades, and that's because he doesn't have a very strong home base. He's always away. So what this has developed is a man that is very physically capable. He has unlimited traits, abilities, effects that he can try and spend his points on. He also has a rule where he must take either the Navigator or Elusive abilities, depending on his faction. Being Norse, we would have to take the Navigator. So if we have a look at this with Navigator, he gains 2 dice on a ship's collision defense for 1 terrain collision each turn, which is very big. And Elusive in the Danes gains 2 dice on a ship's gains 2 dice on a ship's collision defense for 1 ship collision. So the difference here is the Danes have the ship collision, the Norse have the obstacle collision, so you can sort of see there, it's just a difference. They're sort of similar ability, but they've got different abilities depending on what they hit, which is important to remember. So yeah, that adventurer, that's what he does. Okay, the last 2 we're going to look at are number 9, which is the Spiritualist. So this leader is a devout follower of the old ways, and his every decision is based around portents and magical influence. He surrounds himself with like-minded followers, and his every action is another thread in the weaving of his personal weird. So weird is sort of like a fate. The Norns kind of weave that. So he sees everything as a thread within that. He's pretty average across the board. Like can have 2 on anything, so 2 upgrades on any of those things. And if he takes a Vodalva hero, which is the Seeress, she's reduced to 1 point, which is interesting. So you could see there, if you were to take Favored by the Gods up here, that you could get a Vodalva hero on 2 ships, and that only costs 1 point each if you took both of those, which could be a way to play. It could be the way you want to do it, because they are quite powerful. So, number 10, Excess. This leader lives in a world of comfort and excess, choosing to use his position of power to live a fulfilling and bountiful existence. This doesn't always make him the best choice in times of war, but he is resourceful. So like the merchant that we had before, this guy's super resourceful, but he does have a couple of other caveats to go with that. So doesn't have many abilities or traits or effects, like a little bit better than the merchant, but not so great. All of his things are in upgrades again. And he has a couple of rules. So he must select 1 negative trait between drunkard or cowardly. So he's either drunkard or he's cowardly, which is fun. So with drunkard, when wanting to perform an ability, roll a major or minor success or be unable to. And with cowardly, you can't choose combat traits at all, which is big. When wanting to collide and grapple with an enemy ship of the same size or larger, roll a major or minor success to do so. If you fail, it is not possible, and you must choose another course of action. So that's massive too. Cowardly is a really big one. You probably lean to drunkard, but you're going to have problems with your abilities, which is an issue as well. So that is the excess guy. But what he does do is he gains +1 command point, which can be spent on upgrades only, sort of similar to the merchant. So he goes from 3 to 4 as well. So again, just rolling off screen here. Okay, we roll an 8. So that makes our guy, he's going to be an adventurer, which is interesting. So his path up here is adventurer. And the special rules he's going to get there is he has to take navigator. So he has to take navigator as a skill, as one of his selections. All right, so let's move on. Okay, so moving right along here, we have our adventurer. He has to take the skill navigator, which is there, which we've already discussed. Now what we have, that was 1 of his points that we spent. So he has 3, as you can see here. He has 2 left. So we might just do this in the same manner and just sort of select a table that we might want to roll on. So we have combat traits. The only thing this guy is limited in is upgrades. So you can see here, he's limited in his upgrades. Now I'm not going to go through every single skill and ability, but I mean, you could easily pause this here and have a look at them if you want. And I will be releasing this as soon as we've got the rule book to a state that we're happy. We will be producing a PDF so that you guys can see it as well and have a bit of a think and be able to create your fleets and stuff before the game. You actually get the game, which will be awesome. So you can have a look here. We've got combat traits, which, as you can imagine, what they do, and then other traits, which has the sneaky and all that kind of stuff. The negative traits, which we've already gone through, which are given by your path. You have upgrades for both Danes and Norse, which are a little bit different. They get different sort of things that they can have each. You have abilities. So these are once per turn uses. So if you have a look at upgrades as a pre-game change, so it's something you can gain to build your fleet. The traits are something that are permanent, so it's something your leader has when he's ever alive. The abilities are once per turn, and then the effects are once per game use. So that's all. That's the only differentiation between those things. And it's just how they're used really and what they are. So what I want to do, I've got two choices. I want to choose a combat trait. I think he needs a combat trait because he's an adventurer, right? He's going to be swashbuckling. So he rolls a 2, and he has Valiant. So attach leader to assaulting unit to gain a free offensive brace. If this unit dies this turn, leader dies unless they roll a major or minor success. Okay, so you can attach him to unit, like to crew, and they will receive a free brace token, which is massive. It gives them an extra dice in combat, and you don't even have to activate a crew to do that, which is big. But you do have that problem there. If that crew dies this turn, then he's got a 50% chance of dying as well, which is big, losing a leader like that. So our guy, his first ability that he rolls up there is Valiant. So write that on there. And what we want to do now is, I think he's already got an ability. So he's already got Navigator. I think I want an upgrade. Just use that one upgrade point that I have. So I roll a 4 and I get Light Hull. So +1 movement under sails and or for one ship in the fleet, but +1 damage dice to collisions it suffers. Okay, so this is actually going really well in theme with the fleet that we've already got, because as you see, we already have the elite Carvey, so we've got this fast sailing Carvey ship. We've got the sleek and swift ship that can have +1 on one of its movement types. And here we go again. We've got a light shot, like a light hulled ship. So +1 movement under sail. So the theme of this whole fleet at the moment seems to be movement speed. And I like that. So we're going to go light hull as our third upgrade. And that there will complete that section of choosing those. So what I'll do is I'll write down those and then we'll move on to the next step. So our leader is now created. The last thing is I've given him a name. So he's called Thorfinn Ragnarsson. So he's going to be our leader. He's an adventurer, as we said. He's a Norwegian, and we have 65 points fleet limit. Now, as we said previously, his faction ability has Elite Carvey, Sleek, and Swift, so we can apply those to 2 of our ships. And his other abilities are he has Navigator, as we've talked about before, so he can help to avoid collisions each turn, which is going to go well with his fast ships. He has Valiant, so he can attach himself personally to any assaults that happen on his ships to be able to fight and give extra bonuses in dice, which is very big. And he has a light hulled ship, so he has a third ship. So there's 3 ship upgrades we've got here, which we can add on down here. So that'll bring us to the next step, which really is about creating the fleet itself. So our leader is pretty much done. We know the theme of our fleet now. We can see this was randomly rolled, so it actually goes very well with the theme. So this Thorfinn is an adventurer. He's got very well designed ships. They're sleek and swift. They're designed for like just cutting across the water, getting to targets quickly and leaving quickly. So that really goes well with the Viking lifestyle and the Norse as well. I think that's something that's very feasible. And you can see that that's just one theme out of 1,000 that you could sort of roll up or choose if you wanted to when creating a leader. So now really is the big bit. So it's probably, it's fairly easy to do. But you really need to design how your fleet sort of operates first, and your leader and your faction, etc., before you get to creating a fleet, which is actually a very simple process. And just briefly, like if you have a look here, you've got our 4 ship types. So we've got the Carvey, we've got the Snekjar, we've got the Drakar, and we have the Nard. You can see the points cost there, so 15, 21, 27, and 16. Then you're going to populate those with upgrades of crew and or heroes if you want. When the hero points are down here, and you are going to be limited on what you can choose based on the game size. So we're fighting here at Jarl and we're Norse, so you can see here we can have unlimited leading because they're automatically included. We can have up to a maximum of 2 swordsmen, 2 axemen, 1 berserk, 1 Ulfandar. So that's going to be our limitation for our crew. So that'll sort of guide where we go with this whole construction. So what we need to do here is look back at our little ship harbor here. Now I'm sort of thinking this guy is like the traditional Viking. He goes out adventurers, plunders, moves on to different places. I kind of like the idea of him having a big flagship, a smaller carvy, so we can get those bonuses on it as a flanker. And then I like having like a support ship as well, which would be the Nar here, so that can give bonuses and abilities to his crew on the big ship, which is going to be his main punch. He's going to rely on this big Drakkar to smash the enemy fleet, I think, while the Carvy's doing the flanking, and then this Nar is kind of sticking close to the Drakkar as a bit of a tank support, just to make him super potent when he's fighting on that Drakkar. So with that in mind, I'll remove the ships that we don't have and then get onto this fleet creation. Okay, so what we've done is I've just gone forward and I've applied these bonuses and things that we have to our actual fleet. So what we have here is our first ship, which is our flagship, is going to be the Drakkar, obviously. And it's just a bit of an inner joke, because there's a ship called the Serpent in history. There's a ship called the Long Serpent. So this one's called the Longest Serpent. So it's just as a, in your face to those people who had big ships. This is the biggest, obviously. Now, it has an ability called fighting platforms, which all Drakkars have. So it can perform 2 assaults against a minimum of 2 enemy ships. All other ships can only perform 1. So that's massive. And it has, I gave it the sleek and swift ability. So that's this one here. So +1 to any of its movement type, any one movement type. And I chose to go half sail. I put from 4 to 5, which is big. This is really fast now. Under sail, this thing's going to be super quick. And that's how I wanted it on the thing, so I can ram people with it. The second ship we have is the Swift Hildebrand, which is the Carvy. So what I did with this one, it already has nimble. So it is passable obstacles, so that's like your shipwrecks and your light skerries and rocks. You can get a damage minus from it. That's the Carvy ability. So you roll the dice on a major, you -2 damage. On a minor, you -1 damage, which is massive. So that means you can move this thing through bad terrain because it's small and nimble. And it had the elite Carvy ability, which I gave it from back up here on our faction enhancements. So it's got the optimal sailing that the Snekyar normally has. So on a major success each turn, it can get +1 to all of its sailing, which will bring this up to 5 and 8, which is big. Or on a minor, only at full sail, so it can bring that to 8. So 50% chance each turn of increasing its speed, going in complete unison with the rest of the fleet. Everything is quicker in this fleet than it normally would be. That's kind of our theme with it. The last ship that we have is the Salty Foam, which is the Nar. So this one I gave the light hull. So it takes extra damage when it collides with things, but it's got +1 to all of its movement. So it goes from 1, 4, 6 to 2, 5, 7, which is massive. So it's actually a pretty sort of fast, pretty fast for a trading vessel. Still very bad rowing, obviously, because I don't have many oars, but it's a super sleek vessel, which I like. Now, it has high sides, which is one of its abilities. So against Carvy, it's always braced when it gets assaulted. And then it has trade goods. So in this, I haven't really gone through it so much before, but the vessel that we have has trade goods. So it can choose between fur, mead, thralls, and civilians. And it has 4 hull sort of sections there. There's like an inner hull to this ship, and you can choose up to 2 of each of those. So I'll just quickly sort of go on to what they mean. So as far like, because if you choose thralls, which are you're basically your slaves, you can transfer wounds and death to thrall cargo. So say it's got 2 cargo slots for normal crew, so like your spearmen and stuff. So say one of those was to get wounded or die, you can transfer it onto the slaves, which is really cool. So it's like palming wounds off until they die, which is really cool. It adds to the longevity of the ship. You have civilians on board as well, which are these guys. So with the civilians, you can replace lost crew. So if one of crew dies here, you can put a civilian in it if you want. If there's no crew left, you can put a civilian there and you can sail away with those civilian crew. They can't fight, but they can still sail. And they also gain the valuable keyword. So basically, if you lost a crew member on one of these and you put the civilian in there, any shielded crew, so that's like a leadang or a herdman, will automatically defend them without having to spend an action. Because they're women, children, and elderly men, everyone else on board tries to defend them. So if they get shot at or attacked, then they get that free bonus to defense, which is pretty cool. Again, longevity. The furs that you have, so these are the furs at the back here. So you can re-roll one lot of assaults or defense dice within 8 inches of this Gnar. So, example, if I was close to this Drakkar over here and I just totally buffed my assault dice, I could expend this first, so get rid of it, and basically what that would do is I could re-roll all those offensive assaults, anything within 8, which is really powerful. And finally, the mead or the barrels, which are here, if I sacrifice those, so get rid of them, I gain for the rest of that turn +2 to my ship's sailing speed, which is big too. If you're trying to get away or you're trying to get into a good position, this thing can really haul ass by like lightening its load. So that's just what we've got there. And what I've done is I've just chosen one of each just for ease, so you can understand that. So that's our ships. And now what we're currently sitting at, this is a 16-point ship, 15 and 27. So if my math is correct, we have 58 points that we've spent on ships at the moment. So the next step really is to choose the crew and heroes that we'd want to take. So we're going to have 7 points left to spend on those things. Okay, so we're looking at crew. Now, each of these ships has a complement of Lidang troops already. So this one, I can have 3 spearmen and 1 missile troop, either javelineer or archer. This one, I can either have 2 spearmen, or I could have 1 spearman and 1 javelineer or archer. And on this one, I have 8 spearmen, or I can replace 2 of those for javelineers and archers, so I can have up to 2 missile troops on this ship. That's before upgrade, so just with its naked hull as it is, that's what they have, so they're full of troops already, and I have 7 points to spend. So if we have a look at what we have to spend on down here, we have, these 3 are already included, so we don't need to worry about those so much, but we had Herdman Swordsman, Herdman Axeman, Berserkers, and Ulfandar. So the bonus of having Herdman Swordsman, they have a skill called Impetus. So when it performs an assault, this unit, it always is classed as having injured any Lidang troops that it fights. So it's really that powerful against Lidang. They're just better fighters, they're better equipped. And it just sort of shows that if it's fighting inferior troops, because these are your elite guys, then it automatically wounds them. Now, that ability doesn't stack. So if you wound them, you don't wound them twice, you just do the 1. They're also shielded, so they get the 2 defense dice. Everyone else has a base of 1 unless they're shielded. So these guys are shielded, so they get that. And they also are armored, so they have a death save on a minor success. Very important. Now, counter to them, so that's, where are we here? Let's have a look as we go, I guess. So that's our swordsman. You can see them in all their glory there. That's an elite unit. So the second unit we're going to look at that we could have is Herdman Axeman. Okay, so these guys have the ability cleaving. So enemy armor drops 1 level. So say I was to hit this Herdman Swordsman who's armored, he would go from armored to light armored. So he'd save on a minor success, which is a 1 in 3. And he'd be cut down to a 1 in 6 chance of surviving if that was the case, which is very powerful. Negation is probably their most powerful ability. So this cancels the shielded ability in the target crew that they assault. So again, with this guy, this Herdman Swordsman, he'd normally have 2 dice in defense, but minus the shielded, he now only has 1. So not only has he dropped his armor, he's dropped his shield as well, because these big 2-handed axes are just carving through everything. And they also get the death save on a minor success. So they're your elite troop options, and they're your Hearthguard or your Herdman, so your personal bodyguard. They're 2 points each. And you, with your exotic, which are also elite troops, you have your Berserkers and your Ulfandar. So your Berserkers have Frenzy, so they get 2 attacks in a combat phase each turn, which is more than any other. Every other thing only has 1, so that's big. The second attack has to be taken after your opponent's next activation, though. So your opponent will get to activate before your second attack. They also have Savage, which is very cool. So the first attack they do is just completely diabolical, and they act as being braced. So normal base attack here is 2 dice. They go to 3 dice when they do their first attack. So that doesn't go on to the second attack. And they're Fearless, which is like a death save, like an armor save at minor success, but it can't be reduced because they're sort of shunning wounds kind of thing. And they can also save death too, which is cool. Now the Ulfandar have Strike First, which is very powerful. So If they're at the prow of the ship, they're the first troop. When you get assaulted by the enemy, if they haven't activated these guys, they get to perform an assault first, which is crazy. So where the Berserks are more sort of individual fighters, crazy, awesome, the Ulfundar in history, well, from what we know anyway, a bit more organized and elite. So that's sort of showing that eliteness of them, that they get to strike before the enemy do, because they can just counter them with better strategy and tactics, and spears too. They have spears. So they also get the ability that the Herdmen have, which is impetus. So with the impetus, they can automatically wound lesser troops that are leading, which makes sense as well, because they just have that superior fighting ability. And they get fearless, just like the Berserker, which is a death save on a minor success, which can't be reduced. So there are 4 options if I wanted to upgrade crew. And alternatively, I could upgrade, and I won't go through these, but you can pause this and read them if you want. These are our heroes that are included in the Heroes and Kings booster set too. So these are some of the things you do. You've got your Stellari, your Mercus Martyr, your famous Berserker, Scald, Shipwright, Helmsman, Volva. And there'll also be a couple of Kings in there as well. But that just gives you a bit of an idea there. So we're not going to use those for these. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going with this fast, rapid theme of what the fleet already has. I'm going to take one each of these. So I'm going to take, this is the Axeman. I didn't show that one before. So you got your Axeman there. They're pretty groovy little dudes. I'm going to take one each of those, so the Swordsman and the Action. And I think this guy, being kind of like he is, I think I want to take the Ulfundar. I think the Ulfundar could give me the best kind of bet for what I want for this fleet, because they're going to have that ability to strike anyone first and get that real bonus on them before anything really goes down. So if you're looking at that, that's 2, 2, and 3. There's my 7 points of upgrade. Okay, so just for reference now, this is what our complete fleet now looks like that we've created. So what I decided to do is on the longest serpent here, the Drakkar, I've put my elite troops. So I've got my swordsman and my axeman. I've got 4 units of spearmen, and I have 2 units of archers, so they can give good support. And obviously my Jarl at the back there, which is Thorfinn Ragnarsson at the back there. The second ship, being the Swift Hildebrand, has the Ulfundar upon it. So what I thought, this is my big tank ship, so I've got these armoured troops that are really good at punching through enemy. And on this one, it's going to be getting into positions and flanking, but anything that attacks it is going to get attacked first. So I thought that would give it a really big bonus. And then also it's got javelins and rocks and stuff in the back there to throw at people that can help penetrate armour as well. So it could be good against enemy elite troops and to counter people. And what I have in the last ship is I just have my Nar ship, which just has spearmen and some archers, so they can give some archer support. But they also have those spearmen, and we'll be able to buff our damage to these slaves. We've got civilians there, we've got furs, and we have mead. So all of those things can be used to increase its speed. Those civilians can be transferred to get away if we need to. So it's quite a good utility piece, that ship, to go with the big one and the small one. And that is our fleet cost. And you can see down here, I'll just scrub that out. You can see down here, so the Drakkar ends up costing 31 points. It's base 27 plus 4 for the troops. The Kavi ends up costing 18. It's base 15 plus 3 for the Ulfundar. Just a base level Nar ship there. And in total, that's 65 points, which is our fleet, which was 65 points up here. So you can sort of see there where we're going with this fleet. And I'll just do a couple of few close-ups of it, and then we'll go through a bit of an ending. So guys, as you can see there, I just wanted to go through what we're looking at here with the game. Obviously, you can add in the heroes as well. There's literally like thousands and thousands of combinations of different leaders and fleet designs. So you can see hopefully you can see where I'm going for with this one. I did randomly roll it. You don't have to do that. You can choose if you want, but it's a quicker way to do it if you want. So you can see this whole fleet is based around this leader, Jarl, that's this bold adventurer type that goes out, it's good in combat, he can bolster his troops. He can make people move quicker. He's a pretty handy dude to have around, and he's designed this very sleek fleet of very fast and nimble ships that can penetrate enemy lands and raid when necessary and retreat when necessary. And he's accompanied by his trading vessel to store all that loot that he's got. So you can see as a narrative kind of theme, this is something that you might look at as an option when you build a fleet. But as I said, there's thousands of other options you can choose. There's also example fleets that I have within the rulebook as well, where you can just pick up and play it. So if you don't want to create fleets, then I have some example fleets there that are sort of fun to play around with inside the rulebook as well. So I hope you've liked this content. I'm going to bring out a lot more. I've given you a bit of a taste of some of the abilities and things that you can have in the faction stuff. So have a think about that. I'll be releasing these as PDFs so that you'll be able to play around with your own fleets, and because you're going to know what you're going to be getting with your backing. So yeah. And thanks so much for looking around. If you still want to back this project, go to Indiegogo. I'll leave the link down below and support it. It's probably only going to be open for another month or so, just before I give the green light to the manufacturer. So get on top of that now if you want to get the cheaper price for the game and support this independent product. But for now, thank you very much.